Hello and welcome to Cosmoteer. Cosmoteer is a starship building game in early access. It's available on Steam. Go check it out. I'm going to jump right into it. In this series, I am creating a set of ships that is themed after a beehive. So let's get started. Last episode, I made a starter ship, one that is cheap enough that you could jump into the career mode with it. And today, I want to imagine maybe instead of just a basic ship, I want to imagine a Corvette class ship, right? Maybe kind of your tier two thought process on the whole situation. And just to get started, I'm actually going to load in the ship from last episode. So we have it here, and it's got its nice little design elements. I know that with a Corvette ship, we're going to need extra space to put in quite a bit more components. So I want to make it a little wider. And in order to accommodate that, I want to have an extra shield so that I can cover more of the front of the ship. So let's start there. I'll turn on mirror mode. And yeah, let's go with shields that are a bit spread out. Yeah, that looks fine. Now, these aren't exactly covering each other 100%, but the right shield would absorb some of the damage that the left shield could take if it was coming in from that type of angle. We're also going to add some armor in front of the shields so that they, even if the shield is down, they've got a little while before they're actually going to start taking damage. And, this third shield in the center, I could take it, but then it's taking up really good real estate for weapons. I think I want to add a little more firepower. At this point in the game, we should be able to get to a heavy blaster. And I think I want some disruptors in case we run into some shields. Now, if I put all these weapons right here in the center like this, it does create a kind of a vulnerable point on the ship where enemy fire concentrated on it would destroy it fairly quickly. They have to get through two shields, but that's not necessarily impossible. Another option is actually to turn the weapons sideways and hide them behind the shield or behind armor. If you do that, uh, you really just have to make sure that they have a line of shot, a line of fire. If you notice it highlighted in kind of a red fade, that is the direction that those turrets can turn at the end of the weapon there and fire at the enemy. So, and I know we're going to have a lot on the front of the ship in the terms of just styling. We want an antenna and to guard things a bit. I think we'll just be okay with the centered weapons for now. But I would like disruptors instead of laser cannons. And just to look at a goal for this ship, I don't want to go over like 12 crew members. I want this ship to be pilotable by 12 crew members. And that's important during the career because crew members are limited by the amount of fame that you have. So if you want to get into a situation where you're controlling a swarm of bees, you're going to need to have those ships with a realistic crew complement. I can't just have 36 crew on every ship, right? It might even be an interesting component to make as an interesting exercise to make as powerful of a ship as we can using only 12 crew members or 6 crew members. But for now, we'll stick to kind of the tier 2 type of approach here. We're not going for all the best weapons, etc. I do like the extra armor on the shields here, so I think that's worth a little bit. We can go with some. Oh, that's not gonna stick. Maybe some angry bee styling like this, giving these guys a little bit of flexibility. Whenever you're fighting, most of the fighting in this game is going to be head on. Firing your weapons directly into their face while they fire into yours. Until you get into some really creative engineering later, where you maybe build a ship that strafes, and it has such sideways thrust that it can maneuver around the enemy even faster than they can spin. Yeah, I still want to add the style elements of the antennae. So let's add something like that. And some armor. Yeah, cool. All right, that's not looking too bad. I've got some access for each of these. Let's put some doors in and get into the shield room. And the reactor right here. Now, something we should look at is the power consumption of all these weapons. Last time wasn't much of an issue. The entire ship runs on one reactor, and we don't really have much of a choice about that. But now if we look here, we have shields eating up 0.1 power use per second. You'll see it listed there near the middle bottom. The disruptor is taking up, let's see, power drain on hit is actually how much it's taking from the enemy ship. Power use there at the bottom is taking half per second. So for both weapons, we're using 1 energy per second. And our heavy laser blaster is going to be using up 0.89 energy per second. So overall, these 3 weapons are taking up 1.89 energy per second. Our reactor is producing 1.5 per second. So with no other systems active, just firing only weapons, we would run out of power eventually. And then, you know, your weapons kind of stutter shoot and ask for power, and your crew are waiting around in the power room because no power is available. We want to avoid that. So we either need another reactor or a more powerful reactor. I think in our case... or another thing we could do is actually go with a capacitor. So instead of actually, you know, having enough power generation for the ship to run smoothly, what you're betting on is that the ship's combats will be over before the capacitor's out of battery. And, you know, I think that's fine. That's actually maybe a good middle ground solution. And if you look, the difference in cost here is astronomical. 25K for a small reactor, 4K for a capacitor. And the capacitor actually stores quite a bit of energy. Power capacity 18, right? So yes, we would eventually run out. We could actually kind of calculate if we think our weapons are using 1.8 per second and our reactor is building 1.5, and its capacity is 8, that means that we're losing 0.3 per second. So that power capacity is going to go down by 1 every 3 seconds roughly. So we have about 30 seconds, right? Or no, 3 times 8, 24 seconds of time in a battle before this is going to run out. You take that 8 and change it to 18 plus 8, right? We have now 26 total power capacity, and we're losing about 1 per second of combat time. So now we've got, 1 every 3 seconds of combat time. Now you're talking about almost more than 2 minutes, like a minute, 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something of combat time before we're out of power. You know, if you're 2 minutes and a half into combat and you haven't made significant damage on the enemy or they haven't destroyed you, there's some issue there. You should be able to focus and pick off pieces of the enemy ship by that point. So I'm feeling really comfortable with a capacitor. I don't want it to mirror. And, you know, it's not great that you would have to walk through it to get there. So I think what I'm going to do is capacitor in the front, reactor next. That way the accessible energy is very easy to get to. We'll put some doors. The doors between are good. Unfortunately, I think all these doors are useful. We could remove these doors because if you're taking energy, well, no, because if you're taking energy from the reactor instead of from the capacitor, you would need those side doors. Just trying to save money where we can. We'll turn back on mirroring. Okay, I think we only need 1 door to the cockpit. All right, so we have some thrust here, but that's not really necessary. We're going to be removing all of that back end of the ship. And let's put on some wings. So we've expanded the profile of the ship quite a bit. So really, our wings can comfortably maybe get out that far. They're guarded by a little bit of armor in the shield. So if we have like something like that. And this is really just to rough it in. You know, we're gonna figure out what we want to put in there in a bit. Cockpit's not in a great place. I want some crew there. Thing about crew quarters is they don't have any doors opening to the sides, so you kind of have to commit either they're gonna face to the left or to the right. I think maybe we'll put one to the left and one to the right. And next we can have the cockpit. This will be a pretty, you know, protected place near the back. After the cockpit, we need to have another energy generator. And this energy will be used for the ship's engines. We could put another capacitor here. Yeah, a capacitor is probably okay. Because during travel, the power generator should be able to take care of all of our energy needs, but once we get to where we're going when we're in a fight, you know, that power is slowly going to be exhausted. The only thing is I don't want the suppliers walking all the way back here to get energy to try and take it for these weapons. You know what? Let's try it with a capacitor. We'll just try it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll add another generator. And then, you know, at this point in the game, you really... an engine room is a very expensive kind of component. It has a component, ingredient, I guess, called tri-steel. And tri-steel is a little bit harder to refine. You start to be able to do so even in the first solar system. You could in the second solar system in some meaningful way, for sure. I just don't know if I want to include it as a Corvette class ship. You know, might not need something like that. So for now, let's not. Let's bring our corridor down. And we'll start making some engine parts here. Let's see. How do I want to do this? I'd like there to be access to the engines without having to walk through other engines. Large thrusters should totally be part of your tech by now. That looks good. Have a standard thruster coming out to the side. Some rotation. And let's have a two-way small thruster here. You know, I don't, this back part of the B, it doesn't feel big enough to me. These are a little bit wimpy. So why don't we spread it out a bit? We've got all this protection from what are going to be the wings, from the armor. It's silly not to like make use of this area back here. And it's one thing to put in a bunch of expensive components, but you know, we could add some cheap stuff and it shouldn't be too bad. I think this is all the thrust we need. We're definitely going to be forward strong, able to back up in case we bump into something. The spinning motion that's enough. So, and I want this stuff to be, I want it to be accessible to the engine, or to the energy rather, but how do I do that while also making space on the sides of the ship for other elements? For instance, we might start to run into missiles at this point in the game, so we could add a couple point defense cannons to the back of the ship. That way any missiles that kind of curve around the ship might get taken out by these before they connect. And the door for that could go through the engine and here. So let's add a little bit more corridor. Yeah, that's looking nice. We can just move this out by one. Giving some thrust. It looks okay. And even a small thruster here, in case we need more reverse thrust. We can expand the wing a bit, and that's looking all right. Let's put in our doors so that these can be supplied. Oh, I have the vacuum of space in my ship. That is not healthy. Okay. Looking okay. I do need the hatch. I do need the fire extinguisher. These are quite a few engines. And why don't we go ahead and go through the calculation that we did earlier with the weapons to see if this is going to work, right? So we've got power use 0.2 per second. So at 100% thrust, these four engines combined are going to make 0.8 power usage. These guys 0.1 per second. So that's basically all my back engines here add up to 1 energy per second. 0.03, 0.03. So these are another, wow, like 0.12. So one reactor easily handles all the power requirements of these. Not to mention we have a power capacitor during combat that anyone working back here to supply the engines would be able to grab from that. And hopefully our capacitor up here is able to be used only for the weapons. And actually we can dictate that, I believe, in the supply chain editor. Oh, looks like I need to commit to this so far in order to go to this supply chain manager. So if I take this reactor right here, I can actually link its supply so that it supplies only certain components on the ship. And yeah, we'll throw it in the cockpit. And then I can tell the reactor here to supply both the capacitor ports. And you know what? If they want to take it straight from the reactor to the weapons, I think I'm okay with that too. And then I'll tell this to only supply the weapons. All right, so what I've set up here is kind of assurance that my peons, my red shirts, are going to do what I want them to do, right? It's such a great detail. It's such a great feature that they've built into this game. You can also do some stuff with crew priority, where I could maybe set all of these crew members to just supply engine power, right? And I could set all of these to just supply weapon power. That works out great when you have a bigger ship with lots of jobs. I kind of need these people to be generalists. I don't want them going off and only focusing on engines when there's all this other stuff to do. So I think for now I'm just going to trust the base AI to do what needs to get done. And I love that the whole time I've been talking here, these guys are stuck in their rooms. They probably hear, just nothing. The coldness of space outside and absolutely no movement. How did we get here? What's even happening right now? Oh, a door appeared. Let's go. All right, so they're going to start powering up the ship, and I did promise them a fire extinguisher, so I guess I'll do that. We'll put a fire extinguisher here. We'll put a hatch on the other side. We can get into and out of the ship as needed. Some doors. Yeah, you can see the reactor is struggling to keep up, but that's just because of the initial load on the reactor, right? We need some storage. This is such a fun piece of real estate. You don't get this in most ships. You're trying to make them really sleek. I just love that we went for this big blocky, like, hey, look at me, I'm a bee kind of attitude. So I can put Big Mac Daddy storage. That actually feels super nice. Or I can keep the wings just this big, use a slightly smaller storage, and use these outer tiles as armor. I think that's probably the more pragmatic thing to do. Maybe even getting a point defense on the wing here. I find that point defense firing to the straight to the side of the ship is a little hard, because that's when missiles are going to be traveling at their top speed. A missile can come from far away, it can hit your front shield, or it can miss you. Now, if it misses you, it's going to curve back, right? But in the point where it's traveling by you right here, it's going so fast that your point defense drones, or point defense cannons, they may not even lock onto it, much less be able to shoot it down. It might get a shot on it, something like that. But whenever they come back around for a second approach, they're going to be approaching in the direction your ship is traveling, most likely. So the relative speed is lower for them. And in addition, they could just be slowing down in this entire area as they loop back, giving your point defense cannons firing backwards a very good chance to destroy them. And, you know, if they hit front, if they hit on the shields, that's not that big a deal. So a point defense cannon facing to the side is not great here, but maybe we could get one pointing backwards. My only problem with that is the people supplying it have to walk through the supply area here. Maybe if I turn this, no, still not quite. Awkward. It's awkward. I could do it like this, but then I don't have armor on the outside of it. I could do it like this, and I want to replace this corridor on top with armor, so that doesn't look great. No, you know what? I think we're going to trust in our 2 point defense on the back here to handle that kind of scenario. We'll put the supply mirrored on both sides, and we're going to replace this ugly corridor with a little bit of armor. Now, really, the armor we care about is going to be coming right through this crack here, so we need armor in this area. And around the sides. You do occasionally take side fire in this game, especially if you're surprised by 2 ships. Looks okay. Not bad. Yeah, you know, I'll put a little stylish side armor here. It's a very low chance that you're going to get hit there, but it looks nice. I think some structure might be fun. Just a bit of a neck. No, bees don't have necks. They're units. What do we want here? This corridor is... This might be another good place for a fire hydrant, fire extinguisher, actually. We put doors here, fire extinguishers right next to it. And we are, if I haven't said it already, we are at the size now where a fire could be a legitimate concern for a ship. One fire isn't necessarily going to immediately destroy your ship, and yeah, we'll have a little bit of protection there. All right, I actually rather like this. This is protected in the front, good at destroying shields, a heavy laser blaster for chip damage. I want to see the firing arc of this thing as it is. I wonder if there a way to do that. I mean, I can I tell it to fire into space? I don't think so. It needs a target of some kind. Fire at target here. No, it's looking for a component to fire at. All right, so let's give it one. I actually, a while back, I created a ship that's just a test ship, which basically just has every weapon or every defense kind of pasted onto it. So, you know, testing out armor, testing out shields, things like that. Let's take on that. Another good thing about this ship is it has no weapons, so if I set it to a barbarian, it's just gonna stare at me, but my ship's gonna fire at it. Alright, so now you'll be able to see some of the power of these disruptors at work. I'm gonna concentrate weapon fire all on this single shield, and it just drops immediately. Here's another shield. Disruptors are already through. Heavy weapon blaster. It's done. Now this is maybe what we might see in a real ship. The shield is down and now it's chewing on the armor. The crew members inside are working to restore that shield. There, it's restored, but it's down again immediately. And we've begun to chip through that armor again. Yep, so this is good. You know, I like that it's getting rid of shields quickly, that we're getting some good armor damage. Here's even a large shield. A large shield has 3 times as much power as a small shield. 45,000 energy protection. And it's down. And looks like we're going to be able to kill it before they can even reproject the shield. Wow, okay. Large shields also have the problem of if you place any blocks in front of them, they just stop projecting their shield. So that's a severe limitation. And now you see we have arrived at the moment that I talked about before. The capacitor is out of energy. The generator is not able to keep up with the power demand. But, you know, we're still getting some shots off. And Seems okay. Also, we had to fire for quite a while for this capacitor to run out. But notice that the capacitor in the back is actually not being tapped for energy for these weapons. And that's actually by design, because if I go, let's say I want to spin and head off into space, I need that thruster to have power, and yeah, we should have, well, let's set a far destination. Let's see how this works. My crew in the front are resupplying the ships, getting them ready to go, and my crew in the back are using that capacitor to rebuild the thrusters. And now that the weapons in the front are equalized and the thrusters are taken care of from the capacitor, we start to see the crew move energy from the reactor back and try to refill that capacitor. It's getting used as quickly as it gets refilled because the engines are firing, but that's okay. And normally, if these engines were using more energy for some reason than the reactor could supply, you would have them start to draw from this capacitor. But I want this ready to go the next time we get into a fight, right? So I'm happy with this. I guess the one criticism I have here is that this reactor is so far from the back capacitor that it's not having a hard time keeping up with the power requirements of this, but the crew just aren't able to supply it quickly enough because of the long distance. I wonder if they're smart enough. I've never done this before. I wonder if they're smart enough to use a moving walkway that's divided across the ship like that. For instance, if I put from the reactor, if I put a moving walkway backwards and another moving walkway forwards, are they smart enough to come down this way with the energy and then go back that way to get it? Looks like they are. I assume they have some pathfinding AI that would tell them, this way is essentially half a block for every movement, and this way is half a block. And it's funny also, you see a secondary consequence of me making the reactor supply the capacitor and the capacitor supply the engines, is that they're not taking the energy directly to the engines, they're taking it to the capacitor. You'll see them drop it and then pick it up and take it to the engines. That's actually kind of problematic from a pure efficiency standpoint. But honestly, I think I prefer it, because if I were to set up the reactor as supplying all of these engines, then they might have to choose between going to an engine or going to a capacitor. And I always want these capacitors full if possible. Yeah, and then again, I also want to reiterate that if we get the ship to stop, and we give them just a moment here, they're going to refill that capacitor. If this wasn't such a bee-themed series, I would call this the lightning bug or something. It's very like it's out in a flash, right? Okay, all right, this seems like a functional ship. I'm gonna give it a paint job. I want the base paint to be black. Now, I found out since last time that you can actually do color schemes. So let's try one of those. We have to basically do it ourselves now, but in the future we'll be able to access the same kind of color scheme. And it's honestly, it's not that hard for a bee. You got stripes. It's easy. All right. On the wings, we had that nice white with the I think it was this pattern. Yeah. Very nice. And another thing that I'm not really getting into here is you can overlay these patterns as well. So decal, you can think of these as just layers, right? If you've ever worked in image manipulation. So that's looking all right. I think I want to go with some more white for the tips out here. Oh, that actually looks rather cool. Neat. Right, and maybe something I think our shield generators are acting as our eyes for this bee now. So let's give him some highlighting on that. You think of it as like a 6 wide eye. I need something that will form a shape around it. Maybe this one? A little small. I need like a quarter. There we go. I love it. Okay. So that's looking so good. All right, let's wrap it up. I guess as a final thing, let's save the ship and see how much it costs. How much did we end up spending on the ship? Beehive, Corvette. Okay. Let's look at it again. We have 122,450. You know, that's totally attainable for a Corvette, kind of your second ship. I think we went light on weapons, light on crew, and it paid off in the cost. It's fairly armored to the front. We've got 2 shields that are protecting the weapons very effectively. A lot of armor protecting the shields themselves. Probably from the corners is our weakest angle, and that does happen. We do have point defense in case we get missiles, which are powered, so that's good. Okay, let's try to find a ship in the library that is of similar cost. Hmm. 140 it was, right? Here we go. Hunchback. Okay. Alright, so let's give them some time to power up. Go off over here somewhere. What is this ship? It's like they've got... Oh, did we fight this one before? I must have fought this one in the campaign. They've got a railgun and some missile launchers, so I need to supply those manually for now. And this is a ship that's designed as an Alpha Strike ship with no factory. So once it runs out of its storage, it's out. If it runs out of ammo, it can't shoot anymore because it can't make any more ammo. It would have to go resupply somewhere else. We're going to give it high explosive missiles for now. Launchers have the advantage that you could realistically put whatever type of ammo you want in there. Like if you had EMP missiles, but for tier 2 that's going to be pretty expensive to do. So I think this will be a fairish fight. EMP missiles would obviously be a lot more effective against our ship because we're using shields, but you know, HE missiles, high explosive, they're not bad. We'll set his allegiance to Barbarian and set him to attack, and we'll set ours to attack on him. Just to give some intelligence, let's how would I attack my ship? I don't have any vulnerable components out. I think I would go for... I'm not using shields, so I don't care about disruptors. I think I would just try to take out my main weapon, because these disruptors don't concern my hunchback ship. And for range, I would try to keep it, yeah, kind of at range, because my railgun is great at range and my missiles are great at range. On the other hand, on my, if I were playing as the B character here, I really want to rush. I want to get inside of the range of that railgun, and I want to destroy the railgun as soon as possible. The railgun will cause a chain reaction, does the most damage, and I'll keep him reasonably close, but if I can get the missiles on a flat angle where they approach my shields instead of behind, I think I'm happy. But let's see how this goes. Railgun coming into the shield, missiles getting fired upon. Oh, caught some in the side. Oh, took out a missile with my point defense. Caught a missile on the floating armor. Now that shows the power of floating armor, actually. But it looks like I've already lost power here in the front of the ship. So let's see what's going on the inside. Did I... the capacitor's out. They're trying to fire the cannons. The shield is regenerating. That shield is regenerating. Let's see if the armor holds. Oh, I've lost my target. The railgun is out, so I can start working on these other weapons and perhaps on the missiles. It looks like actually one of their missile launchers is also out. Ooh, ouch. What did they take out there? They took out one of my shield generators. Ooh, we're getting dangerously close to my reactor here. Limping along. Oof. Well, uh, it would seem that they have no weapons left. They've fired all of their missiles. They've fired their laser. Sorry, their railgun is destroyed. Their laser blasters are destroyed. Um, I win. I think they were about that far from destroying my reactor here and winning that battle, but overall I win. You know, to match dollar amount with a ship, and essentially this is a joke ship with B wings and antenna. You know, I'm happy with that result. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll post the GIF for this ship if you ever want to build it in the description of the video. Thank you and have a great day.